Hello, welcome to the Cineverm show, a weekly podcast where we will be reviewing and discussing films that we watch in theaters. This week we watched a film about a bear and marmalade. So we are still a little new to this, so bear with us while we figure out how to improve and make this a great discussion about films and film stuff. My name is Anthony Renteria, and this is
Chicken strip. No, I'm just kidding. Chelsea. Renteria.
Yeah. Right. So, like I said, the film that we watched today is called Paddington 2. I don't think neither of us have seen Paddington 1, so so we're fresh into the sequel. No previous knowledge of Paddington stuff. The film is directed and written by Paul King, also Simon Farnaby, another writer. So we'll just start with an overview of what we think on Paddington 2, just general thoughts. It's really funny. I was actually surprised by how funny it was. I haven't really seen a British children's film, so I didn't know if I was going to get the humor, but it was spot on, and I would actually prefer it to American comedies. There was not a single fart joke or implied profanity or
Sexuality.
Yeah, or cuss words or violence. I also thought it was really sweet. Makes you feel all fuzzy inside. And it's super about manners and morals and stuff. Way more than any kid movie that I've probably seen in a while. Which was really cool. The other brief thing I could mention is the CGI of the bear was really good. At first I thought maybe it would look weird, but by the end of the film he is fully a part of the world, and he actually looks cool. Like they went for a realistic look, but they didn't make it look creepy, uncanny, oh, that looks too real. You could still tell he was an animated bear. So
his features were very realistic, but enlarged eyes to make it look more cartoony, and a smaller nose as well was one of his features.
But his fur was on point.
Yeah.
His fur would get wet when he was sad.
The shadows.
Yeah. That was all awesome. So I actually liked looking at that. I didn't look up who did the CGI, but I wouldn't doubt that it's the same people that do the Planet of the Apes movies. I think they're called Weta.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might be. It seems similar. And then the other thing that I liked that I wasn't really expecting was how creative it was. There was a lot of very, very creative elements visually that I had no idea was going to be in the film. It wasn't even in the trailers at all. I don't know if it was in the first Paddington, but there was a lot of cool scenes of him imagining him being in a paper little town. There were scenes of him dreaming about going to the jungle. And imaginations that he has. It felt like you were in a little kid's head.
Yes.
And it was just really cool how they visualized it. They visualized what he was imagining to the point to where it broke reality, but it was a very fluid break. It didn't feel awkward. So that was really cool. That was probably my favorite part, was all that cool visual stuff. And the director also did a lot of other cool visual stuff. There was a lot of overhead shots that I think really looked awesome. There was a cool overhead shot. Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but he was wearing a hat, and it looked like it was a man walking around in a hat, but it was obviously him. I don't know, it just looked really cool because you just saw the hat and his clothing, and it just gave it a really clean look. And I noticed that the director did that a lot of times. He also did really cool wide shots there was a cool scene where some characters are dropping down to like a bunker type thing to escape something, and it was just really cool how it was like it's kind of zoomed out and you see everyone in their quarters, and really cool.
It looked like if you had a building and then you cut it in half, and you could see the piping and the dirt layers of like earth that were under it, and concrete. So it did look really awesome.
Yeah. It looks like, I don't want to say like this guy's copying Wes Anderson or anything, but I feel the same like style, but obviously different. But it looks really cool and creative in its own right. But it did like remind me of Wes Anderson, which is a super big compliment, because that is probably one of the most creative directors out there.
Yeah.
But so, what else? The acting was good. I liked everyone. They all did their roles good. The story was pretty good. There was like, the obvious cheesy kid story type stuff, but it like acknowledged that it was. So all the over the top stuff was over the top, and everyone acknowledged it. So I didn't feel like anything was bad in that. That's just my overview. What do you think?
Well, my overview is maybe not like your overview. Well, I agree with everything you say, and I didn't really notice all of the shots, but it did have a very nice look to it. It looked very like manicured, and everything was clean. The only dirty part about it was a dog that was shaggy, like he was dirty, but everything else, the buildings and everything look really nice.
So I think I would give it a 9 out of 10. I was a little like kind of wanted to give it 8.5, but I think I'm pushing it over to the 9 just because of how creative the direction was and how unique the humor was. Maybe it's just because I haven't experienced a lot of British children films, but this one really hit a spot that I didn't know I had, so I will give it a 9.
Yeah.
And you?
So right now it is a 9 for me as well, because I love kids movies. If anything, now I'm thinking about it more, 9.5. It's not perfect, but it's so close to being perfect. I channeled my kid heart at the beginning, and I experienced it through like I said, my kid heart and my kid eyes, and I loved it. I almost cried on all of it, and I was laughing out loud, and it was awesome, because it made my emotions go like this. And that is one of my biggest requisites to like my ranking system, like how it makes me feel is a big part of that. So that's why I'm giving it such a high score. Go watch the movie now.
Oh yeah. So we definitely recommend you to watch it if you're a fan of children films, British humor, and bears, and marmalade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely marmalade.
Or if you just want like a cool movie to put on for your family, it's really good for that too.
Yeah. Especially if you like more sophisticated jokes that aren't very like you were saying, like fart
Crude,
jokes. Yeah. It was very clean in their jokes.
So we're about to go into spoilers. Go watch the movie now. Come back while you're watching the movie, or when you leave this, like, subscribe, then come back, finish this video, get into the spoilers, leave comments, be a part of the bear revolution. Alright, so you've seen Paddington 2, or you don't want to watch it for some reason. You should. We're about to get into spoilers of what we think. We're going to break everything down. I mentioned before that my favorite part was how creative some of the visuals were. And like she said in the beginning too, that it was really clean. Like from the get-go, you're watching this film and it is like crisp. Like you can tell a professional made this film. Like I don't know anything about this guy. All I know he made Paddington 1 as well. But his visual style is very clean. It was really cool to look at just from my perspective because it seemed like he actually had a visual eye to stuff. A lot of kid movies that I watch that are American made, it seems like the director doesn't really care what's going on or the cinematographer is not really trying to make a beautiful shot. There was a lot of beautiful shots in this film, whether it was like Paddington in the alleyway with his awesome red hat and like the ground is wet, you know, the walls are all reflective and shiny, and then you see like tears coming out of his eyes dripping onto his fur, and like the lighting is perfect. Super cool. I mentioned the jailbreak scene previously where you know, it kind of starts out and you see their cells and they're moving around and it looks like they're like toys in like a play box. It's so cool how they must have created like a big set or something and then just zoomed the camera out. But having that like cut in half, super amazing shot all the way to them crawling out. Well, that whole scene was done, I think, really well. The whole escape scene was very like, they're always moving right, left, up, down. So it was really cool how the camera also tracked with them throughout all those shots. You have some?
Well, I was going to say, did you notice how as soon as they were each in their cells and they pull that brick to the side and they fell, everything behind them was black, but they were so well lit. Did you notice that? Like, it created such a nice contrast because they, like he was saying, like, it looks like a really good, what is the person that puts the lights? Cinematographer. Like, he knew what he was doing. And he was able to get the shot that whoever, I think the director, it puts the shots right. So the director was like, hey, I want this. And he's like, how can I make this look popping? And he made it popping. Yeah.
And the other shots that I touched on previously was when Paddington's going into his like imagination. The first time it happened was with the pop-up book. And as soon as they open the pop-up book, he imagines like him and his aunt, right? And
Aunt Lucy?
Yeah. And the boat, and that looked freaking amazing. I would have watched the whole film with just paper people. Like, it looked really. It reminded me of Kubo, how in the beginning of the Kubo and the whatever strings movie, they had a whole paper like short film within it. This was like the same thing. Like, it was so unique, and then even the editing was done perfectly during that scene because he was like flipping the pages. And the scene would actually cut with the pages flipping, and like a new scene would continue. Like, they would go down the subway. There was one part they went down the subway and they came out up like on some stairs or something. Yeah. That looked amazing. I was like, wow, this guy is pretty creative. Like, to do that in a kids film, you know, like kids, you know, you can throw any joke at them. It doesn't matter how it looks. So like, to go that extra step or that extra mile to just put a visual element to it, it was really cool. Yeah. What was the other scene? Oh, when he's in jail and he starts imagining that he sees his aunt, and slowly the whole jail turns into a forest, and it starts perfectly with a tear dropping into a crack. It was like a metaphor type thing.
Because water can destroy you and it can give you life. The forest, and it looks so pretty.
Yeah, it was really nice. Talking about another prison scene that I liked, that, you know, like, they could have just done a simple like shot design where the prisoners were talking to Paddington about escaping that first night, and they, you know, like, the camera goes into the tubes and like follows with the voice all the way down. And then it ends perfectly with, like, you seeing Paddington's face of fear, like, you know, like, no, they're not gonna not come for me. So that was, like, another, like, there were so many, like, little moments that you're like, oh.
Well, I don't know if you noticed this, but in Finding Dory, they did that.
For real?
Yes.
Oh.
I love how Paddington, the first job he had, he was washing windows and then he messed it up and then he started washing windows with his body and then at one point he was like scrumming with his buttocks and then they did the same type of thing, like he tries so hard and then he messes up, but eventually he prevails in what he's trying to figure out because he's smart, he's just clumsy, right? And whenever he gets put in jail, the same thing happens. They give him one simple task: wash all the laundry, and it's even has the bedding, undergarments, and then the prisoner's clothes, and then it has like sheets or something. And then you see him, he's separating everything. And he's finally done, and then he has a red sock on him, and he puts the red sock in the uniforms, and then he's like, you know what, whatever, because he ends up breaking the lock to open the washer again, and then everything turns pink, and that gives like the first shot whenever you see all the prisoners and they're eating, they're all white. And I don't know, it was really amazing for me to see like how a little color change can make a really big difference. Yeah. Because it was like a little, now it's Paddington, and now Paddington is making his mark. Yeah. Through his mess ups, but he's still making his entrance into the prisoners' like lives and how he's gonna influence them. But I love that. I loved how he always messes it up, and that one he made all the prisoners' uniforms pink, and they were so angry. Yeah. They were gonna kill him. I like the shot where, how he well, the point is why he's washing windows is because he's trying to buy a pop-up book for his auntie, so he picks up washing dishes and washing windows, and at the end he's washing this big building's windows, and it shows a whole building, and it's super tall, and with him are people who are singing, playing instruments, making him shake his buns, and he's so happy. I love that. Yeah, that's really that cool shot how, and they made it look so nice. Yeah.
I like the whole scene where they started making the pastries and stuff, and it was like one by one, like it was like stuff was showing up like a stop motion type thing. That was really cool. Yeah. Seeing all the colors.
So I also like the way that whenever he was calling, what is his family's name? The
Browns.
The Browns. He was calling the Browns on a payphone. You know, where Superman goes in and then he changes his clothes real quick. It was one of those, and it was all broken up, but as soon as he opened it, it was so well lit, like it made him look like he found it made it look like he found like a little bit of hope, and he went inside and everything was so red, and it made his clothes shine again, and he made his phone call or whatever, and as soon as he went out, he was so sad, and he was just walking away, and the payphone's lights turned off, and again his whole spirit was gloomy, everything around him was gloomy. The only lights were when I think a car passed or whatever. Oh yeah. But I loved how they made like that light difference in that scene, because it made him seem more sad. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
They did that a lot with his crying scenes and stuff, like all you see is like the moonlight cast and stuff on him. Yeah. That looked really good. Did you notice the music?
Yes. Very average.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say I didn't really notice the music. And I usually really try to focus. Yeah. I mean, there was like a couple cool like happy jingles. I think the only one that really stood out to me was the first one where it was like his first day in the town, and he was riding on like the bicycle with the girl, and then on the trash can dump truck.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, like a ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But aside from that one, I noticed that when he was crying, it was the average, like...
Yeah.
And then another one was... Oh, another... Can I go back to the other category?
Yeah.
So, at one point, there were nuns, and they were walking in a line. They also did an overshot. And it was like a perfect circle that you could see all the way down to the bottom of the cathedral. And they were all wearing blue, and the floor was like a whitish or whatever. Like a porcelain type of thing. And they all had their candles, and it was like kind of darkish or whatever, but they were walking, and they looked so awesome. Like that overhead shot was really awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was the other shot I was thinking of. Yeah, so he does a lot of overshots. There was a lot of cool overshots. There was I think there was an overshot when he was in the haircut place, when he was spinning around.
Oh yes, and he was like,
oh yeah, that was really cool.
And his whole fur was like
shaking
like
up
a
and
wave.
down. Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny.
And the way he like reacted to it was so hilarious, because he's just like, I'm just gonna try to control this. And he's so nice, even in a complete stressful scenario. He has to answer the phone and then say, "Oh, I'm sorry, can I call you back? I'm a little busy right now."
I think I'm about to shave some customer's head, and then he's so close, and then obviously the worst thing happens, that the chair falls back, and then he shaves the customer's head from the nape from the nape to like all the way up here, and he's like, "Oh my gosh." Yeah. But the cool thing was that the guy was asleep, or half asleep, and he put marmalade on it, and he stuck his hair back. Yeah, but while he was doing it, he was like, the customer was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Oh, it's just hair product, sir."
Just putting some product on there. He's like, "Oh, okay."
It feels so nice.
Yeah, that was a cool scene. Our acting I thought was good. I think Paddington, the voice actor, was perfect for Paddington, because he sounds so polite, like super polite, and like a gentleman and stuff.
Yeah.
All the other actors, I think they did a really good job portraying their characters. The main villain, I didn't really like, but I didn't like hate or anything. He was just like a, typical villain doing his cheesy stuff, and like it like, I can't even hate it because he's an actor in the movie. So like, if I'm like, well, he was a bad actor, and I'm like, well, his character's a bad actor too. So like,
yeah,
it's like I can't even try to talk smack about it, because it's like kind of dignified within the film. But everyone else did really good, like their performances and stuff.
Yeah, casted people that were from Britain for a British type movie.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't like, it's like.
Yeah.
I love that part of the actors, like how they chose him specifically for that.
Yeah, I thought it was cool too. It made it a very colorful cast, like, and then it felt like they were in the world that they inhabited. Sometimes the movies will put people that don't really fit in the world, and they'll try to fit, like, by picking up the accent or trying to do the mannerisms, but it always breaks at some point, Yeah. And here, it just, everyone was like
fluid.
Yeah.
They were all on the same page.
Yeah. I liked all the sets. I liked the prison setup was pretty cool. The whole little village they lived in was pretty cool. It was like a nice little square. Can't think of any other big sets. I mean, there was like the chase sequences and the train set.
And the monastery. Or the church.
Yeah.
I like how you could tell the difference between the Brown family, like their economic, how rich they were, because when you are shown their house, It's very simple, very minimalist. Everything has like a certain purpose, and you can tell it's like not cheap, but good quality, but simple, you know? And then whenever they showed the actor's home, it was so lavish. Yeah. Everything, like, even in the background, the wallpaper looked all trimmed, and then all the architecture inside looked like he specifically put that in. Like, it fit, but it looked like he made it like that because he wanted to live lavish. And whenever they went into, I think they called him Colonel, his house was very plain. Like, you could tell he was living in like a depressed type of mood, like an angry, grudge type of way. Like, everything was flat, everything was gray. Even the armrest or lazy boy that he was on was very plain, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
So I really like that.
Nice.
I like how the shadows were there, because I notice a lot of times when I see that it doesn't seem real is because they don't have shadows. And whenever I was talking about how he was in that telephone booth, before the light turned off, he had his shadow and he casted it, and it looked like appropriate to his size and where the light was, and under his eyes. It was very awesome, especially whenever at one point he climbed up this piping when he was in his cell, and the moon was shining in, and it wasn't like one moment he was dark and the next it was like all lit. It was like very blocky, and you could tell like the parts that were eventually going into the light and the parts that were outside of. Am I saying too much?
Oh, no.
In the parts that were in the darkness.
Yeah, they really did do the shadows really good. And the lighting of the fur. I imagine that must be really hard, doing each individually. Yes. CGI hair.
Oh, the only part that I didn't like the CGI was the goose at the beginning. Paddington's fur was so nice that the goose didn't look good, because it was
in the chase.
You couldn't even see like the feathers or whatever until they really focus on like the beak and like the neck part of it, because it was like I said, you were in his eyes and it was pecking at Paddington. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
But in the first like maybe second and a half, when that break of reality, when I broke because of that hard break or transition or whatever it's called, I noticed it.
One thing I've been wanting to talk about since you brought up the nun thing was how the police officer was like the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and he was like going like he was so exaggerated, like, and I ran as fast as I could. All he has like a cup of tea, not spilling it, how he's kept slurping his drink, like no one robs this place. And he watched her, or him, walk all the way to the statue, climb the statue, and then he said, hey, like, that dude was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that was really funny.
That was really cool.
Then he was like, I will never forget her face.
Yeah.
Let me describe it for you.
Oh, no, it was like, well, could you describe her for us? And he's like, gladly.
Yeah, it was gladly.
Yeah, so the story in general, let's see what I thought. I liked it. I liked how they like wrapped everything back around.
Yes.
I like how it started out just him trying to get a present, and then it, the whole mess up, and like him getting arrested and stuff, him breaking out, and then the whole like mystery that was going on with it as well. Yeah, I mean it was a pretty like clear cut kind of story. Like I didn't know where everything was gonna go, but I wasn't like super shocked at every moment. Like I kind of had like an idea, which I'm not saying it should have had that or anything, but yeah, just the overall story was pretty good. What do you?
what ended up happening to the prisoners that broke out with him?
Oh, they got pardoned.
Pardoned? For what?
For being good people. The judge pardoned them. Oh. It showed in the credits. I don't think you were paying attention.
No.
Yeah. Showed that because he opened Knuckles sandwiches.
Oh!
You didn't see that part either?
No, because my eyes were hurting, and you know that I always like to close my eyes when I don't have to see anything.
Yeah, so they had a whole ending part after the movie ended, showing everyone's like wrap up.
Yeah, I really liked how. Oh, you can keep going.
No, you keep going.
Okay, so I really liked how in the beginning it showed all their passions and why they got their passions, and through the movie, the Brown's family passions helped move the story along. It was not just like, oh, quick backstory and then I'm not gonna use it again.
Oh yeah, it wasn't even thinking about that. Like the whole newspaper.
Yeah, like the newspaper, and then the kid, he actually knew how to manage like the whole engine of a locomotive.
Steam train.
Mm-hmm. And then that helped Paddington a lot, and the newspaper thing really helped a lot because it spread. In the beginning, awareness. Well, in the beginning, it didn't really have like a place because it was just like, oh, she was distraught because she broke up with her boyfriend, so now she just has an only girls thing, and she's the only writer and the only printer, only her stories or whatever. But it wasn't like, oh, she wrote specific stories. And then later on in the film, they gave her the stories to write, which was spread awareness of Paddington's innocence. And it also showed how through the dad's midlife crisis, he was taking yoga. And one of the scenes, he was in between both of the trains, and the tracks were crossing away from each other and about to go under a tunnel, yeah. And the tunnel was separated in the middle where the tracks were separate too. And in the beginning it was like this, and then slowly, by the time he got here, I was not expecting this. I was just expecting him to like get into a split, and then he's like, oh my god, and then someone was gonna like pull him out or whatever. But the fact that he did yoga, he accepted where his body was, and he's like, you know what, I got this. And he was like in super zen mode, and he just did the splits, and he was cool. And then he looked up, and there was a pole coming at him, and then that's when the mom grabbed him, and then he got pulled up or whatever. But I love that little moment. I also like the part where the mom, she was a writer, and she loved writing about adventures. So she wanted to have an adventure of her own, so she was trying to go across the Atlantic Ocean.
No, swim to France.
Yeah. And she was taking swimming classes, and you saw her like swimming like a boss, you know, doing her backstrokes, front strokes. And later on in the film, because of her writing career and her adventure writing, she basically puzzled everything together, and she knew like the steps of how a detective would think. And she organized all of it together down to the end of taking a picture for evidence. And at one time, Paddington was underwater because the evil actor had locked him in a freight cart and pulled that little pin, and then he was separated. And then he kicked one of the, I think it was like a lever, and it basically goes like this, so it redirects the tracks, and he went off, and I guess it was in service or whatever, and he went off and he fell in the water, and then the beginning part of the lady learning how to swim came in, and she dove in like super swan-like, and then the music was like, you know, and then she tried to break him.
That was really cool. And if it was her character, like you said, she was already training to swim.
Yeah, it wasn't like out of nowhere, like, oh, she just happens to have this cool swimming ability or whatever.
Is there any other cool story parts you remember?
Other story parts?
Yeah, or anything else to end with? But yeah, I really did like how they wrapped everyone's skills back around. Very thoughtful way to wrap that up. Trying to think.
Well, I also liked how they used 2 generations of people. It wasn't just like, oh, this happened to me and then I'm trying to fix it. It was like it went through 2 generations for everyone. The evil guy, his grandfather, was the one that was trying to steal the treasure, and the Browns, not the Browns, but Paddington, he had his aunt, and she was the first generation, and then he's the second generation. And also like the gypsy looking lady, it was her mother or grandmother.
Yeah, and the actor's grandfather.
Yeah.
Oh, one of the parts I really loved that we haven't talked about is when, well, it's 2 parts back to back. First part is when Paddington's trying to get all the oranges and they all fall on him, and then the guy is like, you take one at a time. And then he's so happy, like, 1 orange, 2 oranges.
1 juicy orange?
Yeah, like 1 juicy one.
2 juicy oranges?
And he's just so excited, like, he's so, like, polite that he takes everyone's word at heart. So, like, when someone tells him, like, do something a certain way, he's like, oh, well, they're telling me to do that because that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And then he's happy about it. He's not, like, unquestioning.
Like, I don't even have to think about it anymore. Like,
oh,
this
I'm
is
so
it.
Excited, yeah. That was really cool. And then straight after that scene, the guy is being a jerk about his aunt or whatever. And then Paddington's, like, eyes start to get, like, all crooked and stuff. That was a really cool shot, too.
The hard stare?
Yeah.
Or what was it called?
Something like that. And the whole background got dark and everything was turning red. And then the guy's face was like...
He started turning red.
Yeah. Looked like he was about to cry. And then he's like, what are you doing?
And Paddington wasn't saying anything. He was just doing his stare. Like, he saw his eyebrows crunch up and turn into, like 2 little furry worms.
Yeah, he looked angry. Yes. I thought he was going to attack him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, because I didn't... But obviously he wouldn't because it's Paddington.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a really cool scene, too.
Yeah. I liked how he was reading his newspaper, and the newspaper said, the Supreme Court does not... No, it said break out of jail free pass is not accepted by the Supreme Court or whatever. And then it had, like, a guy in the bars, and then he had, like, this striped thing. And I also liked how the actual train station was called Paddington Station.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And, yeah.
Oh, another cool scene was how he used the apples. And that was cool because they, like, prefaced it before, like, him having that first one and he couldn't stick his tongue off of it. So it was cool, you know, they wrapped that back up. Him using the apples to climb on top of the train.
And he was so cute. You would imagine he would be using his hands, right? And he's, like, crawling.
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about, I really like how he is, like, a complete child. Like, he is such a little, like, child. But in, like, the best way, you know, like... Like, he's so, like, carefree and happy and, like, always, like, upbeat and stuff. Even when he's, like, the most depressed, he's still, like... optimistic. Like, when he first went to jail, he was, like, writing a fake letter to his aunt, and, like, he can never tell a lie. So he was just like bending the truth as much as he could. And he was literally taking all the good things about being in prison. Like, the security is really nice, you know, top notch.
Architecture was like
one of the oldest buildings, probably, you know.
Yeah. He's like the security. No, you said the security. Mm-hmm. Something about the rooms, like had plenty for him or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was really awesome.
That was really cool.
He was like, I can't lie.
Yeah.
I really like that too. I mean, it did have a lot of funny stuff that were very like low key.
Low key, yeah.
That I really liked. It wasn't in your face. Stuff.
Like, it was a lot of feel good kind of jokes. Like, you just kind of smile. It wasn't like ha ha ha, like laugh out loud, ridiculous jokes. It's like you hanging out with a bunch of like friends and, you know, like.
Well, if you don't channel your kid heart when you watch it, you don't laugh out loud as an adult. But as a kid, I laughed so much throughout the whole film. I was like, and it felt so good, like hearing those little jokes, and I don't know, it was really awesome to me. And then whenever she figured out that it was the actor, it was because he was like, he has such dazzling blue eyes. And then she was like, click, like, how did you know? And then he had like a shot like this, and then in her mind, all her sketches went in front and matched with him, and she was like, oh, it's him.
Yeah, that was a really cool scene shot, how they did those transitions. Because they didn't, like, make those sketches look different. Like, they just layered those sketches above his eyes, and they made the eyes be exactly the same.
Oh.
So it was like match cutting his eyes.
Yeah. And
which was really cool.
And his eyes, when the sketches were going, were still blue, too. So I thought that was a cool part.
That dude's so dumb. It's like, oh yes, beautiful blue eyes. Like,
yeah, like throughout the whole thing.
You're so stupid or you're so full of yourself that even as a criminal, as a disguised criminal, you're like, oh, that handsome devil, like, what?
He said that in the courthouse too.
Yeah,
like, he must have been a handsome fella, and they're like, "Excuse me," when the, not the jury, but the lady interrogating him was talking to him.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me. Yeah. And he was so weird. Like, I don't know if it's kind of the same thing, but not the same thing. But in Coco, they had a room for the little boy upstairs where he had all his knickknacks, and that's where he could fully indulge himself in an environment that was specifically made for something he didn't want other people to know, but he really loved. In Coco, it was like that. And in this, he also had an attic room, and it was filled with his acting stuff that he didn't want other people to find, because they would probably think he's weird.
Oh yeah, I loved how the dad was like, oh, he's a weirdo.
Yeah, he's a weirdo.
Or no, he's a creep or something like that.
I think he did say weirdo.
Oh yeah.
But I'll notice that little thing. I don't know if it's relevant.
See, like, that's I feel like any American writer would have put, like, what the, like, slid in, like in a lot of kid movies. They always slip in the what the, and then like something happens and it clicks it off or whatever, like before they cuss. But he just went straight to the point, like, oh my god, our neighbor's a weirdo, like.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, I really like how, like, I don't know, they just like say what they have in their mind instead of just reacting.
Yeah.
Super awesome.
Yeah.
This movie makes me want to go to Britain really bad. Or just to hang out.
I don't know if this made you, reminded you of Lady Bird, but how every scene had something different, and then it eventually trailed off into coming up again. Like, everything wasn't, it wasn't like 10 minutes of trying to explain one thing and then the thing happening or whatever. It was like bam, 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 bam. And I think I really like the way those two directors made that. that like sequence happened really like fluidly, I guess.
I agree. All right. Well, I think let's see. Has your review score changed with this discussion about it?
No, I still think it's a 9.5.
9.5?
Isn't that what I gave it?
Oh, I can't remember.
I think it's a 9.5 because it's not perfect. It did have that little CGI thing, and
CGI thing?
Yes. Where I noticed that it was
the goose.
The goose.
And the music.
The music wasn't very extraordinary. I didn't think about it at first, but everything else is so strong that I still believe it's a 9.5, even though there's an added, like, not negative, but like a little detail that isn't perfect.
Yeah. I think I would drop mine down to 8.75. Or 8.5.
Whoa.
Like, it's really great. Just...
Why?
I don't know. Like...
You're such a hard critic.
Oh, no. It's just like the music, and then I don't know, like, like, it was really good, but it just, for some reason I wanted, like, maybe a little bit more out of the story. Like, the humor, the writing, everything was really cool. The direction was even more original than I would have thought it would have been. So, like, the story, like, it was a good story, don't get me wrong, but, like, I felt like they could have pulled out a little more creative layers with the story, you know?
Like what?
I don't know. Like, it just seemed like...
Everything was too happy?
No, it was like, I don't know. I would have liked maybe, like, the actor character not being as, like, kind of dumb as he was. Like, maybe a more complicated villain. Well, not complicated, but more, like, sophisticated, you know? Like, it would have been cool if the mystery was a little more, like, mysterious rather than... Like, I'm not saying it was bad, but, yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to stick with the 8.5 as my final.
9.5, I love Paddington.
So, thanks for watching our Paddington 2 review. We had some difficulties starting out the video, so I'm really tired. Like, started at 3 hours after I was supposed to. But, hopefully
Excuses.
my yawns don't bother you.